I wanted to start by asking if you can maybe address Rhode Island, Southern New England as a whole, and tell them from the beginning, what have you been working on in Washington?
You know, the president made it very clear when he took office that education is a priority in our country. And not only has he been talking about it, but his actions have shown that. So we've been very busy at the Department of Education, first and foremost, safely reopening our schools. And I know Rhode Island has done exceptionally well. Reopening schools during a pandemic, there's no playbook on this. And having come from Connecticut, I know I've been kind of paying attention to what's happening to those New England states. And I know Rhode Island has pushed really hard to safely reopen schools. And congratulations to Rhode Island for doing that. So we've been working across the country to safely reopen our schools and ensure that in the American Rescue Plan, funds are earmarked not only for the academic instruction that was missed, but also for the social and emotional well-being of our students. I think we know now that when we reopen our schools, we have to think differently about how we're meeting our students' mental health needs. Sadly, Ashley, 140,000 students lost a parent or caregiver in the last year and a half. So we recognize and we're elevating the importance of mental health supports and social and emotional well-being in our schools as we reopen and reimagine. We've been focusing really hard on that. We've also been focusing on getting the message out about the elements of this framework that are going to transform education across the country. And I'm really pleased that in the next couple of days, we're going to take the next step in that direction.
Right. So I wanted to kind of go in chronological order with all the agenda items, starting with universal pre-K. I know that is remaining. Can you tell folks who may not understand the concept of the impact of that?
I'll put on my former school principal hat. I was a principal for an elementary school for 10 years, and I could tell you by first and second grade which students had a quality early childhood program and which students did not. And sadly, the latter group would often be in intervention groups where they would struggle a little bit more. You can build a skyscraper with a strong foundation, and that's what early childhood programming does. It's a strong foundation for students so that they can continue to thrive. And we know that the investment in early childhood education pays for itself. $3 to $7 return on investment. Those students are more likely to take honors courses. They're more likely to go to college. So it's an investment in not only our students, which is the most important, but in our economy and in our families.
Of course, and our capital city of Providence is currently under state control. There's so much going on there. How can Build Back Better trickle down and impact a student in Providence?
If every child in our country had access to quality 3- and 4-year-old programming, they're going to get the executive functioning skills earlier. They're going to get the ability to socialize and understand language and build a bigger vocabulary, which would only be helping them in first and second grade and kindergarten when they move on. It really does level the playing field. As I said before, some students start school with a head start, right? Well, this ensures that every student starts at a place where they're ready for the curriculum in kindergarten and ready to take on the challenges of school.
And I wanted to ask, I know our education commissioner, Angelica Infante Green, said she knows you, of course. And I wanted to get your thoughts on how the national agenda can impact, again, like I said, students that are currently in a district that is struggling academically, socially, emotionally. From your experience, what does this state need to do? What does the nation need to do?
Right. Angelica and I would be on the calls during the pandemic, just comparing notes and sharing best practices when she was trying to reopen Rhode Island and I was trying to reopen Connecticut. And I think all commissioners across the country should expect greater emphasis on workforce preparation in community colleges, a better through line between our high schools and our community colleges, more access to college because it increased in Pell Grants. Greater funding for those institutions that focus on institutions, HBCUs. And in many places that are like Providence, there are many students that might look at college now that maybe in the past didn't feel like they can afford it. Tremendous opportunities here, not only in the K-12 space with early childhood education and investments in teacher preparation, but also better access to higher education, which we know leads to income, better income and better life opportunities.
So I wanted to ask, I know you touched on Pell Grant, but our internet connection got a little fuzzy there. So with free tuition at community colleges being dropped, that big ticket item, arguably, the biggest barrier for students, what significant progress can be made in the higher ed field without that item?
Well, I'd like to say it's being dropped for now. As long as I'm Secretary of Education, we're going to be pushing for community college for all. I know the president believes in it. We see the results. Community college graduates earn on average 21% more than high school grads. But we're going to continue to fight for that. And I think in terms of higher education, look, since day one, the president made it clear he wants the system to work for students. We've gotten rid of over $12 billion of loans, especially for those students who were targeted by institutions wrongfully and were misled by institutions. We also really, over 400,000 who have total and permanent disability had their debts removed or lessened. And that includes many veterans. So we've also worked on revamping our public service loan forgiveness. For the president, that's critically important, that we ensure that our public servants are taking advantage of a system that's intended to provide some loan forgiveness. So we have our work cut out for us. We're working hard. We understand the president's vision and we believe in it. And I think across the country, families are going to be improved and students are going to benefit from this plan.
Actually,
Okay,
I think we have time for one more.
Okay, yes. And my one final question, for folks who see these item price tags and don't see, it's not going to impact me directly. It's not going to help my district. This is a big national thing. What is your message to them?
I'm going to say for families, especially for families who earn less than $400,000 a year, you're not going to pay more, and your child will now have access to quality pre-kindergarten program for 2 years. That allows families to go back into the workforce. I'm going to tell those families that if you're making under $400,000, you're going to pay no more than 7% of your income for childcare. That's huge to allow parents to go back to work. It's also, I'm telling those families that you now have access to community colleges because you're going to have more Pell Grants. So you can follow your dreams and reskill and join the workforce in a different way. We often talk about infrastructure, pipes and bridges, and that's important, but the family is the original infrastructure. And this plan has so much for American families. Every family in our country can benefit from this framework.